I'm Melissa Mortensen from polkadotchair.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make these sweet little Harry Potter inspired zip pouches. The thing that's really fun about the zip pouches is that you create the stripes on the front of the pouch using a technique called foundation paper piecing, and it's so simple to do. You don't need a printout, you just need a pencil and a ruler, and I'll walk you through all the steps for making it. Obviously these are Harry Potter inspired by the different Hogwarts houses. The reason that we're kind of calling them Harry Potter houses is because you add these cute Harry Potter house patches. I don't know about you, but when I've gone to Universal Studios or Disney or other theme parks, you always see these cute patches for sale places, and I always wonder what to do with them. So I thought it might be fun to create a fun little zip pouch. The pouches are lined and feature a metal zipper and a little loop that you could attach a lanyard or a keychain to. The pouches just start out, like I said, as simple stripes, and then what you do is and there's one with a little bit kind of a different pattern. You purchase these patches and they're iron-on. It's really simple, and you just iron the patch to the front of the pouch to give you that Harry Potter look. You could do this obviously with different things. It'd be really fun to do with sports teams for college sports as well. The fabric on the front of the pouches is from my sparkler line from Riley Blake Designs. It features a variety of little pluses with a little bit of gold sparkle. Actually, I think you can see it on the green really well. So it's kind of fun with the Harry Potter theme because I feel like the sparkles kind of give it that like magic look that you're looking for when you want to make kind of a Harry Potter project. So let me go ahead and walk you through all the steps to make this pouch. Like I said, don't be intimidated by the foundation paper piecing. It's really simple. If you want to, you can make these just using traditional quilt piecing. You're just going to sew 1-inch strips together. But I think the foundation paper piecing gives you a lot cleaner look and straighter lines. Let's walk you through the things you're going to need to make one of these Harry Potter house zip bags. I am using a fabric called Sparkler by Riley Blake Designs. It's one of my own designs, and it is a fun line of solid fabrics with just a touch of sparkle, which I think makes it really great for this kind of project because it looks kind of magical. So depending on which house you're going to be making a pouch for, you're going to need different colors of fabric. So I have black and yellow for Hufflepuff, and then also using the same yellow and a red for Gryffindor, and then I've got kind of a jade green and gray for Slytherin, and then I used a navy and a silver for the Ravenclaw, and I started with Ravenclaw because that's my Hogwarts house. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need to pick up some house patches. These are made by Harry Potter. They're officially licensed. Mine were $8 a piece. I got them at Universal Orlando, but I know you can order them online. I'll go ahead and add some links where you can get them. And then just kind of real quick, just double check that the fabric you picked looks good with the patch. You're going to need a 10-inch zipper and some paper. I like to use foundation paper. It's special just for foundation paper piecing. If you don't have it, don't stress. You can just use a plain white piece of paper that you have at your house, just like printer paper. And then you're going to need a ruler and a pencil. I'm going to show you first how to create just a simple 1-inch diagonal stripe piece for the front of your bag. What you're going to need to do is just take your 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and your ruler and go ahead and mark a diagonal line with your pencil across the edge. Then what you want to do is find the 1-inch mark on your paper and the 1-inch mark on your ruler, and I'm just putting that ruler on top of the mark on the paper and drawing a line. And then I'm just going to move it up, making sure that that is centered, and keep doing that until I get to the edge. And I do want to show you something when we get to the edge. So technically I can fit 1 more inch mark here, but when I start putting in seam allowance and everything, that just leaves like a really funny corner. I did it with my original one and I think the piece is way too small. So I'm going to go ahead and have you leave that. So that one ends up being a little over 1.5 inches. And go ahead and draw your lines on the other side. Now you're ready to cut your fabric. After you've drawn your lines, you want to come in and you want to label the stripes because you're going to forget, just trust me. So depending on which one you're doing, we're going to go ahead and work on the Slytherin one. I'm just going to go ahead and put G for green and S for silver. And so I'm just going to do G, S, G, S so that I know which stripe goes where. Now you need to cut your fabric. You're going to cut all of your strips of fabric 1/2 inch wider than your stripes. So my stripes are 1 inch, so I'm going to cut 1.5 inch strips of fabric. If you were to do something different or a varied stripe, which I'll show you on the Hufflepuff pouch, you would want to do that differently. But go ahead and cut them 1.5 inches. It's technically for foundation paper piecing, it's not necessary to cut them at 1.5 inches, but I prefer to just go ahead and pre-cut it because I have to cut strips anyway. I've got all my strips cut. I've also cut a larger piece of the green and a larger piece of the gray or silver because these were wider than 1 inch, if you remember when we marked our lines. This first step is going to seem confusing. I'm going to try and make it not confusing, but it's a little counterintuitive. But you guys can totally do this. So what you're going to do is take this first piece and one of your silver strips, and you're going to place them so that, let's do it on this side so it's not as confusing. Place them right sides facing along the raw edge. So that raw edge is lined up. Then what you're going to do, and usually when you paper piece, sometimes people like to use a light box, but I'm not going to do that because we're dealing with just straight lines and it's pretty simple. But if you're really confused, use a light box so you can see where this is. And I'm just going to come in, and I know where this seam is here, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball where 1/4 inch is from that, and grab a pin, and I'm just going to put a pin in it. So my fabric is right sides facing with the top fabric wrong sides facing on top of behind this. So it looks like this. And you're going to go to your sewing machine. You're going to use polyester thread so that it holds up a little better when we rip this out. And you're going to stitch with a short stitch length, like 1.5 or 2, right along this line that you drew. I've sewn that line. You can see, if I can get this to focus, there's a seam there. Flip it over, and you're just going to press. You can use your iron. I would recommend, if you're new to this, go ahead and ironing in between spots and just flip that up. Now what you're going to do, I know how big this needs to be, so I can go ahead now at this point and trim some of this excess off. Then I'm going to take the green strip, and I'm going to make sure, I can't put this here because when it flips, it's not going to cover that. So I'm going to come up and make sure that this comes up at least 1 inch or so higher. And since I pre-cut my strips, my seam allowance is already there, so I don't need to worry about trimming the seams. Take it like this, pick it up, so that's what it looks like, and you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch along this next line. Hopefully you can see here, I've got the 2 pieces right side facing, and then the wrong side of this is facing the wrong side of the paper, and I'm sewing on the drawn line side, the side with the paper. as I flip that over, you can see how it's starting to make a stripe pattern. So I've got my next green strip sewn. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do my next silver strip. This is easier to do when you're just staying at your sewing machine versus me. I'm kind of like standing up and moving back and forth. But if you have a little cutting table at your sewing machine, it's a lot easier. So just take this, flip it over. And if you want to go ahead and trim this before you start, when you're on this side, you know that this piece has to come to this point here to cover it. So I feel fairly certain I can trim this right there, and that when this piece is flipped up, it's going to cover this whole length of paper. All right, I've sewn all my strips. There you can see. Now I have this last corner, which is silver. If you recall, this one was wider than 1 inch. So I have a scrap and I'm just testing it to make sure it will fit. And this one just barely fits, but it does fit. So I'm going to go ahead and place it here, stitch this on this side and flip it up, and then my front will be done. Now that all my strips are sewn, you can see I've got nice stripes, straight lines, clean seams. We're going to come and trim it. Just going to take a ruler and a rotary cutter, cutting roller. Guys, you can tell I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm doing. I'm calling things what they're not. And just trim it even with the paper. You've got your nice stripe ready to be turned into a zip pouch. I've been tearing the paper off the back of my fabric. Just push it back, fold it over, it kind of creases it, and then it should just come right off. You might end up with a few kind of stray pieces, but those are easy enough just to pull off quickly. Some people like to use glue when they do foundation paper piecing. I don't, but it's up to you. Do what makes you feel good. And also, you know, if this is the first time that you've done this, you know, cut yourself some slack. This is a counterintuitive technique that some people, you know, have a hard time wrapping their brain around. But I feel like it's the kind of thing that, like, once your brain clicks and you figure it out, then you just know how to do it. So, you know, maybe challenge yourself to try something new. And there you can see, look at my pretty stripes right there. Before we construct the zip pouch, I want to go ahead and show you an option for one other design. I'm going to do this with my Hufflepuff, mostly just because I don't love the black and yellow. Sorry, Hufflepuffs. And so what we're going to do, go ahead, start with your diagonal line. And this time we're going to alternate 1/2 inch and 1 inch lines. I also need to kind of figure out with these corners what I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and just do a black corner, even though this is bigger than the 1/2 inch, just because it's going to get caught in the seam allowance. You're not going to see as much of it, so I think it's better just to kind of keep the other pattern consistent. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to sew it the same way. I recommend, normally with a 1/2 inch strip, you would want to use a 1 inch piece of fabric, but with all these little pieces, kind of as you work, sometimes your seam allowance gets off a little bit. So I'm going to recommend either 1¼ or 1½ inch strips. So I'm just going to cut all my strips 1½ inches, and then I probably will have to do some trimming of seam allowances in between. I'll go ahead and get started and then show you how it's going. Alright, I want to show you how to proceed if you're doing this with the alternating 1/2 inch strips and your strips are cut to 1½ inches wide. Obviously, as you can see right here, if I were to sew this yellow piece on, this black piece that's underneath is going to show, so I need to trim it. One way to do this also is just to cut some of your strips to 1¼ inch instead of 1½ inch. But it's up to you. I personally think that it's easier just to go ahead and trim the seam at this point. Especially when you're dealing with so many lines so close together, to get this effect of kind of like that necktie effect is just really hard to do if you're just sewing regular strips of fabric together. So I just have this extra piece of plastic that I use, but you can use like a postcard or whatever, and you're just gonna go ahead and place that on the next line where your next seam is gonna be, and you're gonna fold that back. And then you're going to take, I use an @1/4 ruler. It has a little lip on it that's 1/4 inch out, but every ruler has a 1/4 inch mark, so this is definitely not a necessary thing you have to have. And then just trim this. Obviously you can trim a little off the ends there. Trim all of it. And then flip this back like this. And now I'm ready for my next piece, and I know that none of this black fabric is going to show through to the yellow. Like I said, it's just totally preference. One of the reasons I liked doing this one with the 1½ inch strips is as your foundation paper piecing, it does save you a lot of time to not have to stop and trim in between each step. If you do it this way, I recommend definitely setting up a station for yourself as you work. I will link up a blog post that I have that really details how I kind of get in a rhythm with foundation paper piecing. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and keep adding strips. The black and yellow is now finished, and I wanted you guys to see how nicely that turned out. The stripes are a lot straighter than they would be if you had just sewn those together. And again, last step, we're just going to go ahead and cut it down and trim it. And then we are ready to take our pieces and start making zip pouches. For the zip pouch directions, I'm going to go ahead and point you to a different video that goes and talks about just how to construct a simple zip pouch.